Good morning. Today's devotion starts in the beginning. So, first of all, this is morning, the beginning of the day. Thanks for coming and watching. Today's devotion, first one, videoed, starts in Genesis, in the beginning. So I'm going to read Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 through 25. This is the NIV version. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening. There was morning the first day. And God said, "Let there be a vault between the waters to separate water from water." So God made the vault and separated the water under the vault from the water above it, and it was so. God called the vault sky, and there was evening, and there was morning the second day. And God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear." And it was so. God called the dry ground land, and the gathered waters he called seas, and God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit, with seed in it, according to their various kinds." And it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seed according to their kind, and trees bearing fruit with seed in it according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good, and there was evening, and there was morning the third day. And God said, "Let there be lights in the vault of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark sacred times and days and years, and let them be lights in the vault of the sky to give light on earth." And it was so. God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set them in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning the fourth day. And God said, "Let the water teem with living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the vault of the sky." So God created the great creatures of the sea, and everything, living thing, which was the water teems that moves about in it according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. God blessed them and said, "Be fruitful and increase in number, and fill the waters in the sea, and let the birds increase on the earth." And there was evening, and there was morning the fifth day. And God said, "Let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, and livestock, the creatures that move along the ground, and the wild animals, each according to its kind." And it was so. God made the wild animals according to their kinds, the livestock according to their signs, and all the creatures that move along the ground according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. This passage is very important. Not for a lot of reasons some people think, but this sets a tone for the rest of the Bible, the story of God, his plan. That's what the Bible is. It's what he's revealing to us in his plan. So what is this creation story, this very first section of the Bible, telling us? Is it a chronicle of how the universe was made? Or is it a creation myth? Well, no, not really. Yes, it does give us insight to how God created reality, but that's not its primary purpose. And it certainly is not a creation myth. It was not meant to be a story to explain how the universe was created. What it is establishing God as a sovereign and diminutive entity over all. Everything that happens is because of him. Emphasis on all, everything that exists. So notice the very first statement, "In the beginning, God." This passage is all about him. Notice the following verses break down what exists and put God over these things. Each verse begins with, "God said, let there be light. God said, let there be day," etc., etc. And who says it was good? God. Who names it? God. God is sovereign. That's what this is about. Unfortunately, this understanding has been distracted by this creation evolution debate. Many times, this passage is thought to explain why instead of who created reality. That said, we need to hold on to the creation story. It's important because that gives us orthodoxy so that we don't get contaminated, or our orthodoxy does not get contaminated with evolution. That doesn't mean we can't learn something from evolution, but we have to understand that God created the earth. Science is a tool. It isn't the all in all that God is. So, orthodoxy is important for creating a standard, but unfortunately, orthodoxy sometimes blinds people. Orthodoxy is not God. So, what happens is you create orthodoxy. This is a creation story. We're just going to put evolution completely out of the story. Well, that's not totally true. And I'm not going to get into the particulars of that. We don't need to blend the two. But the problem is the debate becomes about the orthodox of creation instead of who created. So it's just like the Pharisees did with the law when Jesus came to them. God came to earth as Jesus. And what did they see? They saw somebody that they thought in their mind was not following the law. And guess what? They killed him for it. This is what orthodoxy does, or legalism. We need it to keep from heresy from entering orthodoxy. But we have to focus on what the important thing is. It's God. So, let's go back to the story. So why do we need a God to explain what is? Why can't it just be? Well, God gives reality a purpose. If chance is the governing factor of reality, then there is no purpose. So if you have no God, you have no purpose. We experience in life suffering, joy, and over generations of time. If we have no God, we have no purpose in that. God gives suffering purpose. We don't like to say God is diminutive over suffering, but he is. All suffering has a purpose. All joy, all good has a purpose. If there's no God, joy has no purpose. It's just serving myself. Seeking happiness only for myself is me worshiping me. God gives the whole story from beginning to end purpose. So science seeks the same thing. What? Yeah, science is looking for a unified theory, something that ties all the physical forces and unites them. The biblical narrative starts with a unifying theory that God unifies this. So we see this more boldly in another biblical creation story. So I'm going to read one of my favorite verses in the Bible. John chapter 1, verses 1 through 4. So, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and darkness has never overcome it. So, this passage is about Jesus, the Word. I love this. Now that I understand it, I love this calling Jesus the Word. I think of it as like Jesus' street name. Hey man, here comes the Word. Get down, Jesus the Word. No, sorry. The Greek here, however, is not word, it's logos. After my conversion, and I read this passage, I thought this word thing was about the Bible, the message of God. And when I found out it was logos, I thought it was the wrong interpretation because I had studied philosophy before my conversion and I knew about the Logos. But neither of my thoughts were true. I was on milk. I had to get more mature. So to understand this, we have to dig a little deeper than I usually like to go in these devotions. But this is important because it sets the tone for all our beliefs, just like the very first verse of the Bible. So the Logos is an ancient philosophical concept. So there was a Greek Jew named Philo who expanded this concept from other philosophers earlier than him. Philosophers at the time were also exploring a unified theory, just as science does today. They haven't found it, even though the Bible gave it to us to begin with. Here's what Philo wrote about the Logos. The Logos of the living God is the bond of everything, holding together all things and binding all the parts, and prevents them from being dissolved and separated. So the Logos is kind of like the glue that holds things together. My one buddy likes to say the Logos is string theory. No, we're not going there. The Logos is Jesus. So many people act or believe as if God created the world and then stepped back and let things run their course on their own. And God only intervenes when he chooses. But this is not the case. John chapter 1 verse 3 says, nothing that exists is separate from God. Every thought, every smile, every twitch of a muscle, every hair, as it says in the Bible, on your head, every grain of sand on a planet we haven't even discovered yet in the universe, darkness, lightness, it all exists because of God. It's all part of his plan. It all has a purpose. This is what following God is all about. Understanding that he is in charge. He is in control. Okay, I'm going to start preaching here. So, God is working all things for good, and he is active in all things. He is active in your life, not that you don't have a certain amount of individuality or you don't have sovereignty, but you have responsibility in your person, but God is controlling it. God is affecting every moment of your life. So this is the narrative of the Bible. This is what the Bible is all about. It's not about predicting the end of the world. It's not about that. This is the whole entire Bible is about showing God's sovereignty, how he is building. If you see it as a mosaic, how God is creating this story from beginning to end. It gives us the beginning. Revelation gives us the end. And the end, for those of us he chose, we get to spend eternity with him in a garden city. But we'll get to that in other devotions. So what is this word? Why was it interpreted the word? So the ancient Jewish philosophers, here we go, deeper than I like to go, believed the foundation of reality was God's language. So Psalm 33:9 says, for he spoke, and it came to be. So, same thing in the creation story in Genesis. God said, let there be light in there. He spoke it, okay? So, I didn't quite get this. It took me a little while, a couple years to chew on this. So, one day, you guys might be familiar with the VeggieTales cartoons. So one day I'm in the grocery store buying tomatoes. And I'm singing the VeggieTales thing while if you like to talk to tomatoes, and I realized it hit me that I am this tomato that I'm looking at is talking to me. No, it's not going, hey Randy, how you doing? It's communicating to me. I know it's a tomato because it communicates with me. So this idea is that the world, all reality is communicating with me, and I'm communicating with it. You recognize me, even if I don't speak, because of my body is communicating with me. All language, notice my hands moving, is not speaking. We read facial expressions, hand expressions, my tears, my smiles. We read all that. It's not just words. So when the word in this case is language, the language of God, we walk, talk, speak, feel the language of God. So that's pretty deep. So this is a long way around to get to the daily devotions. What in the heck is all this about? Yeah, sure, it's about God's sovereignty. It's setting the tone for all the Bible. All the devotions we are going to come to ahead of time. But what can you take away from it? Well, of course, the main thing is that God is sovereign over all. The things in your life that you don't understand, that don't make any sense, they only don't make sense because you're not God. You only see this little tiny bit where God sees the whole picture, and they have a purpose. That wart on your big toe has a purpose in God's plan. Yeah, you may want to get rid of it, but there is purpose in all things. Suffering, the Holocaust. We take comfort. We weep, or we I can't find the word. We grieve over those things because we have to experience them, but that grief does not overcome us. We don't become self-righteous about those things because we know that something bigger than us is working. Okay? We have faith in that. So he has dominion, so we don't need to be discouraged. So another thing is to not get distracted by all the noise in the earth. The world is not God's kingdom. God's kingdom is where he dwells. We don't dwell in the same kingdom. Although God is active in our world, he doesn't dwell fully there. And as we go through the Bible, we'll explain that more. But we focus on him, his kingdom, as believers. We don't focus on politics, job, economics. We participate in those things because God has a plan for our participation. But that is not our main focus. So I'm going to read Proverbs chapter 4, verse 25 through 27. Let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. Give careful thought to the paths of your feet, and be steadfast in all your ways. Do not turn right or left. Keep your foot from evil. So what it's saying is, don't focus on this side or this side. Focus on God, straight ahead. Don't get distracted by the orthodoxy of the creation story, or don't let your belief get contaminated by the evolution story. Believe in God. Faith is what we're called to when God, the Holy Spirit, dwelt in us and chose us. We came to faith. We believe in God. We trust him. That everything, we don't need this long narrative of how the earth was created. What we need is God and belief in God and faith in God. Focus on that. Thank you. Love you.